Okay, I'm starting in the four-peak cabin. This is a double berth, big bed and plenty of space, room for dressing, and then a huge storage cupboard underneath, which is just behind the forward water tank. There's all sorts of things in storage there, mainly the Jenica and the generator, some tools, things that we use on an annual basis, plus the dive tanks and things like that. In this cabin there is storage here. You can see we've got one side of the storage, we've just put our life jackets in there for now. There's plenty of room for clothing, two smaller lockers on the port side, three small lockers on the starboard side. There's lighting for reading just underneath each side of a set of cupboards, and LED lights, spotlights shining into the room. We can't see because it's so sunny today. There is also a 3-speed fan in here to keep you cool in the summer. A nice large hatch lets the wind in, ventilates nicely, as well as a dorade opening just above my head. And just to the port side we've got another nifty little storage area where we keep all our screws, bolts, washers and innumerable shackles and things like that in that little cubby there. This is the starboard bunk room. It's set up for sleeping for two. Top bunk, bottom bunk, and there's loads of storage under the bottom bunk. All the tools and all sorts of useful things are in there, as well as in the bilge under the floor. Inside there are 4 little lockers. We keep all our kind of emergency kit in the top cupboard, together with medical emergency kit in the second cupboard, foghorn, searchlight and anchor control, spare anchor control in the third locker down, and then paints, primers and white spirit paints and things like that in the bottom locker. So it is very much the shed when it's not being used for people to sleep in. It's got 12-volt sockets in here. It has got lights as well, little LED lights, spotlights, and a couple of hatches, one up top and one off the starboard side. So there is plenty of room. There's also a lee cloth that goes across the top bunk, which isn't in place at the moment, but we have one. Okay, now you can see the bunk room as a storage area. So we've got 2 huge boxes behind these sets of drawers, which we rarely access, so they've got things like engine filters, impellers and things like that in. And then these are mainly housing tools, so drills and ratchet sets and vernier gauges and things like that. So this is a real man cave. But we keep all the mattresses ready to flip down, and if we do have guests we just take those boxes out and they slide neatly under the saloon table so that we can still sleep 2 extra people. And there you can see the storage area under the bunk. It's really spacious and full of all sorts of lovely things. I don't think there's anything that we don't have. This is the forward heads. It's on the port side. There's a toilet on each side of the boat, so you can go in any conditions, whichever way you happen to be leaning. There are a couple of little lockers below the sink, just really for things like toilet paper and washing powder. And then behind the mirrors there are also 3 lockers where I keep mainly first aid and medical stuff. There are also 2 first aid boxes in here. One with large dressings and one with general everyday first aid should it be needed. The toilet we added last year. It's actually a waterless toilet. We had no holding tank when we got the boat because in the days when it was built they weren't required. And we had also a temporary holding tank fitted, which we absolutely hated because it stank the whole time. So after some investigation we discovered this waterless toilet system, and it's been an absolute godsend this summer. We can just not worry about holding tanks and smells and things. It's been really brilliant. So we're pleased with that addition, but it may not suit everybody. We had new sinks fitted in here recently, so it's all looking quite shipshape. There's also an extendable tap, so if you wanted to shower you could. However, there is no bilge pump in here as yet, but it could be retrofitted if needed. However, we tend to use the shower off the back in the summer, and occasionally we'll maybe use the shower in our heads. Here's the main saloon. Lovely and spacious, comfy and cosy, all in one go. Lots of light and lots of headroom. I know I'm pretty short, but Ian is 6'3" and he can stand up in here comfortably. So there is seating around the table for at least 8 people if required, and there's all sorts of storage underneath each seat and behind each seat. This middle bench is perfect when you're cooking in the galley and you're out at sea and tipping up a bit, so you've got something to lean against, and it's also something to grab when you're coming through from the cockpit into the cabins. You'll see that the woodwork is in very good condition as well, and we've really looked after it, so has the previous owner. It's very strong and well built. The handholds are everywhere, from by the sink to the bench and to the chart table, and clearly going up as well into the cockpit. Really firm, strong things to grasp, so there's no danger of falling. There's lots of light coming in from the port lights, which we tend not to open because we dread forgetting to shut them and then go out to sea and have water pouring in. But they can be opened and let a bit of extra ventilation in when you're parked up. Each of the top windows has got its own little curtain, and there are hatches for the main hatch in here as well. There's a hatch cover for the main hatch in here. In the galley there's plenty of storage for day-to-day necessities. There is also a fridge in here, and I keep all the crockery in there, and extra bits of light things in here because of an experience on our first day at sea where all the plates that had been stored in there flew out like pizzas, and nearly decapitated me. There's the cooker. It's an oven with 2 ring burners. At the moment we've got the electric kettle plugged in, but normally we have a gas kettle on there. And then there's adequate storage for mugs and for glasses in here, and all day-to-day condiments, oils and so on can be kept there, and I keep all the larder goods in that far cupboard on the left there, together with baskets for veg. There are bilge storage areas underneath here where we tend to keep things like engine oil, things that we don't need to get at very often. And again you can see fire extinguishers, special fire extinguisher there for the engine, another fire extinguisher there by the chart table. Here's the chart table. We have attached a gas solenoid to the gas bottle so that the gas can be switched on and off easily, and should there be a gas leak there is a gas detector which will set off an alarm. There is some storage underneath the chart table in those drawers and cupboards. That's mainly tools, and when we're plugged in and parked up we use an electric hob normally. I've just tucked it under there for now. There are extra drawers here. I'll show you my spice drawer. Loads of space for the spices, and the top drawer for cutlery there. In the corner under the sink is the bin, which swings out on a little swivel. There is a saltwater tap there, but that has been disused for 5 years. It could easily be reinstated if you wished. And then there are 2 sinks. There's loads of space for chopping and preparing food. We've got 2 fans in here, one over the saloon area, which is a 3-speed fan. All the lights in here are LED bar the old original lights in the ceiling, which are still working. And behind me there is another fan which points towards the galley. Again, all the lights are LED and mostly touch sensitive. Altogether, it's got plenty of space, we found, for storing everything and being a nice space to live in.
So the chart table, we use OpenCPN for our navigation. This runs on a Panasonic Toughbook. It's connected to everything on the network, so we get AIS on here, radar, all the instruments, all the Raymarine stuff, and it also talks to the network. So once you set a course here, it passes it to the Raymarine network, so you can see it up at the chart table, up at the cockpit, as I showed you yesterday. As well as here, we also have GPS, a Garmin GPS, which provides current position. It's a very basic chart plotter, but we don't use it for that. VHF, ICOM VHF, which also has, as well as a microphone here, is connected to the command mic that I showed you up in the cockpit, and the SSB single sideband radio for long distance radio calls, which, as I mentioned, is currently disconnected from the powers. We never use it. There is a PACTOR modem that connects to the SSB radio, which again is disconnected and stored away underneath me. Coming right up here, we've got an ST60 graphic display, the same as the one at the helm. Any information that's available on the network can be displayed on here, and then a wireless controller for the autopilot. Behind me here is a man overboard alarm, which should you go over the side will alarm and let the one remaining person know they've got to come and rescue you. All the electronic controls here, all the fuse panel, etc. We have a handheld compass. Then above this we've got a Pico station Wi-Fi booster connected to the high gain aerial up on the back that I showed you on the top side, and a pilot twin channel gas alarm. The engine, the alternator has been upgraded to a 100 amp alternator, which is controlled by a Stirling regulator, and then earlier this year we changed to a Stirling charge controller to get rid of the split charge diodes. There's an intelligent controller in here now as well. We have a quick hot water tank, 30 litres. We've just changed the heating element in that, so that's brand new in there. The fuel filters, there is a primary filter and then a secondary filter for the fuel. All the fuel pipes were replaced 2 years ago, and the seawater cooling raw water pump coming in here was replaced 6 weeks ago. Down below, the belt and the timing belt were changed 6 weeks ago, and the engine's been serviced through the winter and put to bed. So all the filters are new. The engine oil's just been changed. So back here we've got the primary filter for the raw water, seawater coming in to cool the engine, and the sail drive, which was replaced in 2018. So that's a brand new sail drive connected to the original engine. Because the new sail drives have got their own water intake for the engine cooling, we've got a redundant seacock here which is sealed off, but available should you want to fit something like a water maker. The sail drive oil has also just been changed.
Okay, just moving into the aft cabin now. This is underneath the cockpit. So massive double bed, and there you can see the air conditioning unit at the back. There are two huge lockers on either side of the bed, which we store any amount of things inside. And there's also storage behind the seats, under the seats, and beside the seats. There are two small lockers on either side, and one big locker with a shelf in the middle, so we can store pretty much all our clothes easily in that space. And there's an also electric socket in that cupboard. Each side has got three little drawers, or two drawers rather, and a little locker as well, so we can store things in drawers also. And above the big locker is a ledge for hats and things. In here there are two skylights on each side, plus the big open ventilation hatch here, which allows wind to come in when you're sleeping, and you can look up at the stars, which is nice. There are also fans, three speed fans on either side of the beds to keep nice and cool. We find that we don't really need the air conditioning with the fans on. And then moving round again to the starboard side heads. This is the one with the shower in it. It's a power shower. It's absolutely fantastic. The water's piping hot, and there's plenty of water for a couple of decent showers easily. We have a Lavac toilet in here. It's a brilliant toilet, Rolls Royce of toilets, and requires a little bit of exercise to pump, but it's fantastic. And no smells. Two little lockers again behind the mirrors. We fitted a new sink this year, and again there's another locker underneath for bits and bats. There's a work in progress behind those pipes. They will be concealed eventually. There is a bilge pump in here, which is electric. Switch is just there on the underneath the sink, so any water from the shower can be pumped out. And a big mirror. Hello.